Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, buckle in for this one. Click. Yeah, see, that was my buckling right now. But this is going to be an absolutely crazy episode. I mean, it already started off in a really weird way with that, but I'm keeping it. We're just going to keep moving forward. So, on this episode, let's get this card banned. Because, yeah, I think this is an absolutely crazy and ludicrous deck. That might be my craziest, most off-the-wall deck. And, yeah, it is something that is absolutely terrible. Probably the worst thing that you could ever possibly do to opponents in a game of Commander. So, yeah, let's get this card banned. And, okay, well, I think if I cut this correctly, I just cut to Joda, and it's not Joda. We're not trying to ban Joda, okay? That's not the goal. Okay, not Joda. The card will come up here in a bit where the entire deck is built around. But yeah, the commander for this deck is going to be Joda Archmage Eternal, which is a fantastic commander, and I built a couple of decks around Joda, actually. One of my very first episodes was built around Joda, and then a recent one, recent, the past couple of years or whatnot, around Villainous Wealth, which I love that deck. It's one of my favorite decks. Regardless, this deck is entirely different, but Joda is incredible in it. A 4/3 human wizard with flying that costs 1 blue, red, white, but it is not a Jeskai commander. It is a 5-color commander because you may pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells you cast. So, our spells can have a discount. Well, okay. Actually, I think there's not very many spells actually in this deck that do get the discount because many of these spells are pretty low to the ground, but there is one in particular that we would like to cast multiple times. And that one can be quite pricey. So yeah, getting a little bit of a discount, that's nice. Also, getting access to every single color is incredibly nice because there's some crazy things that we can do with this fantastic card. Now, to get into the card that is going to be banned after this episode, I'm very sure, and to get to, you know, the point of what this deck actually does and why it's so bad, well, we've got to talk really quick about, well, this deck and all my other decks, and yeah, they're budget friendly. Even though it's an absolutely terrible thing to do, every single card in the deck is less than $1, including the commander, so it's very budget friendly. You can do all this for just $21.41. Now, do I recommend it? No. Is there a deck list link in the description below? Yes. But you should probably, well, I mean, if you know your friend group well enough, this could be a jokey thing to do to them, but yeah, you should never do this. It's just to people at the LGS. Never do this, okay? Never. Never, never, never. Okay. Now, with all that said, well, I'm going to take you different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. And of course, now let's jump into it with tactic number 1. And I usually don't start with a golden pig, but it is definitely necessary for this deck because I need to show you, well, why this card can be ban worthy when in the wrong hands, or actually sometimes anyone's hands. Here we go. So the golden pig, the number 1 card of 99 is World Purge. And if this isn't a card that you've ever seen in a game of Commander, well, you're not the only one because it's only in, according to EDH Rec, like 400 decks. And for good reason, because this is the kind of card where it's like, wait, that card's legal in Commander. That can't be legal in Commander. That cannot be legal in Commander. That's legal in Commander. Who is managing this? Yeah, World Purge is currently legal in Commander. A sorcery for 4 Azorius. Azorius? Did I say that right? 8 mana in total. Here we go. Return all permanents to their owner's hands. Each player chooses up to 7 cards in their hand, then shuffles the rest of their library. Empty all mana pools. Yeah, Upheaval, yes, is banned in Commander, but World Purge is not. World Purge is like, no. Hey, you didn't even know I was here, right? You didn't even know I was here. All those other cards that are banned, you know, that maybe shouldn't be banned, like, you know, Braids. Yeah, they got nothing on me because you know what? Board wipe everything to oblivion. And yeah, I'm not destroying things, all right? This is not land destruction. This is just land relocation. There we go. Yeah, you're just going, the land's going to your hand. It's not going to your graveyard. It might go in your library when you shuffle it away because you know what? We're restarting the game. Yeah, this is an 8 mana restart the game spell. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, okay, if it wasn't bad enough to restart the game, here's the secret of this deck. We're going to do that again and again and again. So your opponents will be trapped in a forever loop of never ending the game, and this is so incredibly evil. Yeah, it's evil. Don't play this deck unless you know your friends very well. But yeah, this is a card that, yes, is legal currently in Commander. Maybe shouldn't be, but yeah, no one plays it, so that's probably why it's legal. But yeah, a way to reset the game is absolutely gross. Now, the reason that Upheaval's banned, this one's not, is because it does empty the mana pool, so it is hard to take advantage of it because, yeah, you can't just dump a bunch of mana in your mana pool and be like, okay, well, I'm casting World Purge and then also casting this other big spell from my hand, so I win because, you know, I've still got stuff in play and you don't. Yeah, it empties the mana pool. One thing it doesn't, though, it doesn't empty your graveyard, doesn't empty anyone's graveyards, it just shuffles hands or the excess, past the 7 from hands into libraries. Doesn't touch the graveyard. So, yeah, we can do this again. All right, so how are we exactly going to do that? How are we going to do this multiple times? Well, let me move you on to the next tactic. That was a weird way of saying that, but let's do that. Let's move on to the next tactic called cold storage, and we're going to start things off, well, with some cold storage cards. At least I like to think of them as storage. First, the Detention Sphere. We're going to be utilizing some very, very specific storage kinds of cards in these. Now, my requirements for these kinds of cards is that, well, they don't specify they can't be your things, because we're going to store our own things so we can get advantage on our opponents. Detention Sphere says, when enters the battlefield, it may exile target non-land permanent, not named Detention Sphere, and all their permanents have the same name as that permanent. Leaves the battlefield, those come back and play their owner's control. Basically, these kind of, again, storage containers for us. We're like, okay, yeah, hey, I don't need this thing out here right now, so I'm just going to store it up underneath this, and then, oh no, World Purge happened. This got bounced away. Therefore, my permanent that was stored with it comes back. Cool. So again, when choosing these cards, specifically not choosing ones that say opponent controls, which Wizards started doing that lately because sometimes they don't like fun interactions like these. So next up, Fiend Hunter. Enters the battlefield, exile another target creature. Again, doesn't say you control, and then when this leaves, comes back into play. Again, we've got these other Fiend Hunter type effects as well, other creatures that can basically do this as well. I built an entire deck around Fiend Hunter Tribe, which I absolutely love. This is a different kind of deck. But yeah, you can do some crazy things with this, and we'll keep going, and we'll talk about exactly what you might want to store up with these. But yeah, a lot of storage containers, like Rel the Magpie. Hey, this one would allow us to store from our opponent's creatures, but we don't care about that. We don't want to help them out. We're going to store one of our creatures, and then when this leaves play, that comes back, essentially. And it comes with counters on it. Nice! Oblivion Ring, a great one again. Like a Detention Sphere, essentially, but only, exiling one thing and bringing it back again. This can exile anything that we have, and as soon as it goes away, that thing comes back. So again, a good storage container for us for when we World Purge. Next up, Release the Wind. This is the strangest one. This is an incredible card with this kind of a deck. Instant for 2 and a blue, exile target non-land permanent. For as long as it's exiled, its owner may cancel paying its mana cost. This is basically like, yeah, this doesn't have to be in play. Like, I mean, it's not like an Oblivion Ring that has to be in play that if your opponent deals with it, sure, your other thing comes back. This is like, nope. I blinked it basically, and it comes back whenever I want to. I mean, like, a casting restriction, sure, like on your turn most of the time for your permanents, right? But still, hey, just whenever you want it back, bring it back. Moving on, Touch the Spirit Realm. This one actually surprised me. I thought this one would say an opponent controls because it is a newer one, but Wizards didn't say that for some reason. Enters the battlefield, exile up to one target artifact or creature until it leaves the battlefield. You could also channel if you want to, but no. What we want to do again is store something up with this. Next up, Wormfang Drake. This is a very weird one. Enters the battlefield, sacrifice unless you exile a creature you control other than it. Yeah, we don't want to sacrifice it, so let's just get rid of something else. Again, this used to be like a downside for these kinds of cards. It was a 3/4 flyer for 3 mana, but now it's like, nah, we don't really care about it. It's a 3/4 flyer. We just care about it storing up one of our cards. So also, we've got Changeling Berserker. 5/3, Changeling, Haste, Champion, a creature. Champion is a weird kind of mechanic that usually is creature specific. Creature type specific, I should say. But again, for a Changeling, they are all creature types. So this one's like, hey, yeah, any kind of creature. Just, basically when this enters the battlefield, sacrifice unless you exile another creature. When this leaves, it comes back. Kind of the same thing as a Wormfang Drake. Next up, Faceless Butcher. Again, hey, enters the battlefield, exile another creature. Cool, leaves the battlefield, bring it back into play. Why not? Again, usually with these Fiend Hunter type effects, you'd be utilizing them against your opponent's creatures. Be like, I temporarily want to get rid of that. And with this kind of deck, you're like, no, I'm storing up my creatures for some weird thing that might happen here in a bit, and then World Purge happens and you lose all your friends. Next up, Phantom Steed. Enters the battlefield, exiles a creature until it leaves. When it attacks, you can also get a copy of that creature, which can be beneficial. That being said, when this leaves, you get that creature. Nice. Moving on, we've got Yannick, and yeah, this one basically, yeah, sure, can distribute some counters when you store up a creature. That's fine. Who cares? What we care about again is it can store. So we'll go quickly. Changeling Hero. Basically, again, champion a creature. Cool. It's got lifelink. Whatever. Who cares? The champion a creature is the main thing. An even bigger Changeling Titan. Yeah, it's a 7/7 for 5. Who cares? Cool. What we care about again is it is championing a creature. We store that creature up, and that creature can be fantastic. And we'll talk about the creatures here just a little bit. Okay, just wait a little bit longer because we've got some mass storage. Not too many, okay, but some mass storage that can really help us out. So next up in tactic number 3, Let's talk about mass storage. So first up, we've got Glorious Protector. Enters the battlefield, exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. We've got a lot of non-angels that we want to exile and just store up with this. So this can be a mass storage device for us, essentially. And again, we can flash this in when we need to. Next up, Abdul Adrian. Enters the battlefield, exile any number of non-land permanents you control until it leaves the battlefield. And we also get to get, a 1/1 for each one exiled. Cool. We get some tokens. That doesn't really matter. Again, basically, hey, exile whatever you need. This just kind of holds them all as a storage container, and then when this leaves, when we world purge, then we get all of our other stuff back. Next up, Lumbering Battlement. Hey, enters battlefield, exile any number of other non-token creatures you control leaves the battlefield. Sure, this gets large. Cool. Who cares again? Basically, exile the creatures that you need to exile while this is in play before you world purge. Admonition Kingdom. This works in a weird way. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, you can exile a non-land permanent other than it. So yeah, sure, you can exile your opponent's things. We're not going to be doing that. We're just going to store up our own things underneath this, and when this leaves, those things come back into play. So again, lands can actually help us do that. So keep in mind that for, like an Evolving Wilds, that can be 2. Mirror Landscape can be 3, that kind of stuff. Anyways, last one. This one isn't technically stored. This one's more like a mass blink effect that is pretty interesting. Golden Argosy. When it attacks, exile each creature that recruited this turn, turn the battlefield, tap its control at the beginning of the next end step. That is incredibly important because, if we brought them back right away, sure, you can take advantage of ETBs, but that's not going to help you get around a board wipe like a World Purge. Now, World Purge is going to say, hey, okay, yeah, you attacked with this and some other creature, you exiled them, cool. Those creatures are just floating up here, and then your second main phase, you're like, World Purge! And then everything goes away, and those creatures that were just floating up here then come back into play at the end of the turn. You're like, oh, what happened? Oh, my goodness, where'd everything go? Where are the lands? What in the world is happening? Oh, that's the plan. That is entirely the plan. So now let's move on to next tactic, which can be tactic number 4, which I'm calling What in the World, which is kind of like what this entire deck's purpose is. Like, what in the world is going on? You're like, fun times, right? World Purge, everyone loves it. So anyways, Skullwinder is going to enter the battlefield and return target card from your graveyard and choose an opponent. That player returns a card from their graveyard. Unfortunately for that opponent, again, you just wiped the board because, this is all part of the plan, all right? Here's what you do. You get this into play. Sure, you return some things. Great. But then you say, okay, I got my Fiend Hunter, got my Oblivion Ring, whatever. I'm going to get that attached to this, essentially, store this Skullwinder up in exile, and then all of a sudden, World Purge, that goes away. This comes back. You get that ETB again, and World Purge is going to be in your graveyard because it also does not exile for whatever reason. So, then you get it back in your hand immediately. And we'll talk about some ways that you can just recast it. Maybe immediately, but pretty quickly with this kind of a deck. So, of course, we've got plenty of other ways to recur World Purge, an absurd amount of ways to do so, because, we really want to be doing this again and again and again to stick our opponents into, like, an infinite loop of sadness, basically. So next we've got our Chaomancer. ETBs, return instant source from graveyard to your hand. Very good, very effective, very efficient, and, of course, you can return other things as well. But, World Purge is the main one that we're shooting for. Next up, Ardent Elementalist. We got there. ETB, it's the exact same thing. Next up, Timeless Witness, ETB, but hey, go get anything out of your graveyard into your hand. So it could be World Purge, something else that we need, whatever it is, great. And we could also eternalize this if we really need to, but again, to take advantage of that ETB, to, keep, exiling it, getting back into your cold storage, essentially, getting it back into play. Let's maybe not eternalize if we don't have to, maybe just keep it in play and keep it going and going, have fun. Next up, Is It Chronarch? Yep, slightly less efficient as the other ones, but basically ETB, return instant sorcery. Same thing with Mnemonic Wall. Again, we just really care about, not really the efficiency so much, but more so, we've got ways to ramp. We've got ways to get these out. We've got ways to take advantage of them and, get that ETB. Next up is Escab. Basically the exact same thing. Or you can, actually bring a creature back from your graveyard to your hand too. And also if this dies, don't let it die in exiles. But if it does, that's okay. We've got other effects. Moving on, Salvager of Secrets. ETB, bring one back. There's a lot of these effects, and we're going to take advantage of all of them. Shipwreck Dowser, basically the exact same thing, but also has prowess. We don't really care about prowess. We don't really care about attacking our opponents or winning. We just care about keeping them in this loop of sadness of not being able to, move the game forward, progress the game, have anyone win, because we just keep resetting things again and again and again and again and again. It's maddening. Moving on, we've got Green Warden Amarasa, ETBs, return card from your graveyard to your hand. If it dies, you can do the same thing. But regardless, a great ETB, the Eternal Witness kind of ETB that we so desire. Next up, return Past Caller. We can return a Spirit, instant or sorcery. Yeah, we're going to be returning most of the times a sorcery with World Purge, but yeah, any of the other ones, I mean, Spirit probably not, but any of the other ones are great. And then we've got Revolutionist. This one does have Madness in case you end up discarding it. You can do that as well. Maybe after your World Purge, you got stuff in your hand, and then you draw another card, then you wait to the end of that turn, and then you're like, oh, cool. And yeah, we do have ways to actually, still have mana after that. Not on that same turn, but we'll see here in a little bit. Anyways, last one, we got Scholar of the Ages, ETBs, Get Worldpurge, and a friend. When we'll talk about some really good friendly cards that you're going to want to utilize with it too. I think it brings back 2 instant sorceries, which is fantastic on ETB. So now that we've set ourselves up for that, though, let's set ourselves up with another way, okay? We want to make sure that we can World Purge again, not in like 8 turns after we play lands. We want to World Purge pretty quickly after that. We don't want our opponents having ways to stop us. So, hey, let's move on to attack number 5. What a dork. And in here, we're going to talk about some dorks, like Gilded Goose, a total dork. A 0/2 bird with flying enters battlefield, make the food token. You can tap, sacrifice that food, add 1 mana of any color, and pay 1 in a green and tap it to make more food. We have a lot of mana dorks in this deck. 15 if my numbers are correct, actually, on this one. A lot of dorks in this deck with the purpose of, well, being dorks, tapping for mana. And when we World Purge, well, some of them might bounce back to our hand. They're pretty efficient, pretty effective. But other ones, again, we can Fiend Hunter away. Again, we just need like one Eternal Witness type effect, essentially. Again, whether that's Archaeomancer, etc., etc. Have one of those essentially Fiend Huntered away, Cold Storage away, whatever you want to call it. And then the rest of them can just be Mana Dorks. Maybe we've got a Lumbering Battlement that can handle all these, essentially, right? Basically, all your Mana Dorks that you don't need to cast your spell, essentially. And then, your Eternal Witness, essentially, effect. All stored up with your Lumbering Battlement. Then you cast your World Purge. Then that goes away. Then you get all of them back. So you've got mana, and your opponents do not. All their lands are gone. All of your lands are gone, but that's okay too. That's the plan. Anyways, next up, Drover the Mighty. Very simple, very effective. 2 mana, tap for 1 mana of any color. Next up, Losing Keratin. Basically the exact same thing, but if you've got a big creature in play, it taps for 2 instead of 1. Moving on, Incubation Druid. If this has counters on it, it taps for 3 mana, and you can actually adapt that if you need to. Regardless, again, efficient and effective. Moving on, Llanowar Loam Speaker. Sure, you can turn one of your lands into a creature. But what's important is it taps for 1 mana of any color, because again, with Joda, again, we can get to that 5 mana with these, the 5 mana essentially combination that we need, the exact Wooburg combination. We can get there quicker than if we were like, hey, we need to get to 8. No, with Joda, we can be like, no, we just need 1 mana of each color, and our mana dorks can tap for 1 mana of each color. Next up, Ornithopter Paradise. Very efficient, very effective, and 2 mana of any color to get into play, essentially, or colorless, or whatever. You know what I mean. Moving on, Paradise Druid has text if it's untapped. If it's not, that's okay. It's a great mana dork. Then we've got a weird one, Queer Elves, enters the battlefield. Hey, you choose a color. Great, so whatever color you need for the situation that you're in. Again, if you've got other mana dorks in play, they can fill the other colors. If you're like, yeah, sure, blue. Blue is what we need, whatever, sure. Pick that color that you need, and then make sure you can World Purge again. Speaking of that, Rattleclaw Mystic can handle most of the colors, and also you can morph it for a nice little boost of mana, as well as, tap at the exact same turn if it's, the same turn it came into play. You know what I mean? Moving on, Reclusive, Taxidermist. Again, just taps for a mana. I'm sure these can also be bigger too, but that's okay. Just taps for mana. Gyre Engineer taps for 2 of our mana, and this is a very efficient, very effective, kind of like that one mirror, Platy Mirror that taps for 2. But again, this one taps for green-blue, so 2 of, Joda's 5 colors that we need to cast a spell like World Purge for, discounted rate. Next up, Heronblade Elite. When we've got humans entering the battlefield, we can make this tap for even more mana. ETBs, or whenever another human enters the battlefield, it gets a counter on it. This can tap for 1 mana or X mana of any one color, X is its power. So this can tap for quite a bit. Next up, Rift Sower. This one can be fun with World Purge as well. It can just be a great early mana dork to get out. It's got Suspend 2 for a green, or you suspend it and then you World Purge, and then it's gonna be coming into play a little bit later after everything went, oh my gosh, what happened? Where's everyone? And then it's just like, oh, I'm here. Here, I can tap right away. Great. Moving on, Weaver Blossoms. Daybound. It's gonna be pretty easy for you to flip this, because this can tap for 1 mana of any color on the front, and 1 mana of any color on the front. It's got Daybound. If a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night, so it's gonna flip. And on the other side, 2 mana of any one color. Yeah, it's gonna be hard for your opponents to cast spells when they don't have anything in play. Again, you bounced it all. So yeah, they'll play a land, but then they'll be like, I don't have any 1-drops. Yep, it flips. Next up, we've got Wirewood Channeler, one of my favorite cards from my childhood. Yeah, with your other elves, this can help you tap for even more mana. Tap at X mana of any one color, X number of elves on the battlefield. You can tap for quite a bit. So yeah, you can get well past your opponents after they're like, well, you reset everything. And then you're like, well, I got things in play because I stored them. Why didn't you all store up for the World Purge? What were you doing? You weren't planning ahead? So yeah, that can be quite fun. Speaking of fun, we got to talk about how to actually get to World Purge because you've got to do that to have fun, right? So let's talk about our next tactic, tact number 6, World Traveler. Let's start this off with Diabolic Tutor. A very simple tutor like this one. Hey, go get any card in your library, put in your hand. Cool. Can be, again, if you already have World Purge. I almost said World Tutor. If you've got World Purge, you can go get, something else maybe protected. We'll talk about here in a bit, or another key piece that you might need. Next up, Bring the Light. This one's kind of weird in this deck because, well, actually, it works out very well in some ways. Search the library for a creature, instant sorcery card, converting mana costs less than or equal to the number of colors spent, essentially, for it. This exiles too. Regardless, if you spend 5, go get something that costs 5 or less, essentially, cast it for free. So, hey, that could be a creature like, a Fiend Hunter to, blink your other creature, essentially, or not blink. Store your other creature or whatnot. It could be that Eternal Witness type card, essentially, too. Or, yeah, you could actually just tutor out a tutor to go get your World Purge if you want to go get World Purge. This can't get you World Purge, but this can get you a card like Diabolic Tutor, which does cost less than 5, to go get World Purge. So there you go. Next up, Coveted Prize. 5 mana, basically go get World Purge. Basically it. Diabolic Revelation. Put X into it, go get whatever cards you need, whatever your heart desires. World Purge plus other things too. Again, you got plenty of ways to ramp with this kind of a deck. Moving on, List Shipment. Hey, you've got creatures that, again, can store up other creatures and ETBs that you actually want to really take advantage of. Maybe you sacrifice one with Casualty 3. So yeah, if they got Power 3 or greater, cool. Sacrifice it. You can double up this tutor, go get 2 instead. So that is a situation that might occur. Next up, a brand new card, Invasion of Arcadios. A battle that has an ETB. Go get an instant sorcery. And yeah, that's probably going to be World Purge. You can also, yeah, flip this essentially if you need to. And yeah, whenever you cast in sorcery spell from your hand, you may copy the spell. Choose targets for the copy. Does take you actually attacking this and taking it out essentially to do so, or convincing others to do so somehow. There are ways to do that, of course, but yeah, the most important thing is that tutor. Next up, Razcast Right. Tutor for something or cycle it away if you don't need that. And then finally, Invert, which is an amazing, Invert's okay, who cares? Anyways, Invent is the one that we care about. Instant speed, go get an instant and/or sorcery card in your hand. Great, go get, World Purge. Go get another one of these cards I'm going to talk about right now on the next tactic, which is tactic number 7, which I'm calling Not Stopping It, because this is coming. The end of the world is coming. The World Purge is coming. So first up, we've got Autumn's Veil. Spells you control can't be countered by blue or black spells this turn. Cool. And also your creatures are safe from blue black spells too. Regardless, hey, most counter spells are blue or black. So you're like, hey, blue mage over there. You don't know I'm doing this turn. Let's Autumn's Veil start the turn off. You want to counter this? No? Okay, cool. Hey, World Purge. Bye! Okay, next up, we've got Dispel. Counter target instant spell. So, yeah, most times an opponent's going to try to stop you from doing it in your turn. It's going to be instant speed, instant spells, and you're going to be like, nope, 1 mana. No, thank you. Moving on. Counter spell is creeping up in price. It was 85 cents last time I brought it up. Now it's 90 cents. I'm so scared it's going to keep going out of price for me. That's okay, though. For now, it is budget friendly. 2 mana, counter any spell. Yeah, fantastic. Next up, counter Squall. Counter any non-creature spell. That player loses 2 life. Just a little insult to injury. Hopefully you don't take them out with that, right? Because this deck, we want to make our opponents even more miserable and just have to keep playing this game that is never going to end. So yeah, put your lands out. They're back in your hand. Put your lands out. They're back in your hand. Oh, you played a creature? Back in your hand. And yeah, hopefully you don't make them lose the game by making them lose 2 lives with this. That's not the point. Next up, Memory Lapse. Counter target spell put on top of its owner's library instead of its player's graveyard. This is kind of funny because usually that player would be able to get that spell right back. But with this kind of a deck, when you World Purge, they're like, I got to shuffle my library. Oh no. So yeah, they just lose it. Not forever. I mean, again, this game's going to go on forever. So they have to keep, drawing back into it. But yeah, it's not going to happen. Next up, Negate. Counter target non-creature spell. Yeah, very efficient, very effective. 2 mana. And then we've got Unsubstantiate. This one's, again, pretty funny because your opponent might end up just shuffling it back into their library because, you unsubstantiate their counter spell. And then they're like, okay, well, you just World Purged and all my things are back in my hand now, and I've got to decide what 7 cards to keep out of these 20. So yeah, your opponents might be in pretty big trouble with that. But yeah, this is an incredibly, terrible and awful deck. Again, do not play this against people that you do not know. Number 1, don't play it against people at your LGS. Do not do that. It is rude. Number 2, your play group, if they're okay with a kind of deck like this and it'd be funny for them, and you know your play group, right? Then sure, go for it again. But don't do that if it's not the kind of play group that wants to see that, okay? Not everyone wants to be like, oh my gosh, you just played that one card that I thought was probably banned in Commander, but it's not banned in Commander, and maybe it should be banned in Commander because people build decks like this? What are you doing? You're an awful person. Just kidding. Anyways, but yeah, so make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below responsibly, okay? Okay, I'm looking at you. Looking at you. Ryan. I don't know, I just picked Ryan. I'm not speaking to anyone specifically out there, but there you go. Just one of those kinds of days. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.